2019 is now wrapped up in a pretty little bow, and that means two things. Number one, we can now make our merry little ways down to 2020, but also the 2019 games list type videos can now no longer be compromised by last-minute surprise game drops. So with that, we can conclusively choose the best third-party games on the Switch for 2019. And as we go, we'll also keep track of just how many colons show up in game titles these days, because it's a lot of them. Let's talk about it. More and more, the line is blurring between indie games and third-party ones, but for this list, I've tried to pick games that are fairly unanimously not considered indie, but some may be partly debatable. Furthermore, this year had incredible lineups of some genres such as RPGs, so instead of listing only RPGs, I tried to keep it diverse so there's something for everyone. And even more furthermore, these are not in any particular order, as their target demographics are very likely different, so let's just talk about them all and enjoy. And let me know in the comments which ones you think I missed. First up, Dragon Quest XI's Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition finally made its way to the Switch in September. This game is developed by Square Enix, and as it came over to the Switch, it brought with it additions of quality of life features, story content, a 2D mode, fully orchestrated soundtrack, and a ton more. But at its core, this game is the pinnacle of a modern representation of a traditional turn-based RPG. The base game takes about 60 hours, but then has an even further 40 hours or so of post-game content. And all that when there are functions like being able to speed up combat and more. Of course, more hours in a game doesn't make it better, but if you're looking for something to sink your teeth into and hold you over for a while, this game will do the trick. On the other hand, if you're looking for more pick up and play content, then perhaps Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled is for you. This game is a faithful recreation of the 1999 PlayStation Crash Team Racing title, except it looks now like we think it looked then, and also adds new content. Last week, I made a video about improvements needed for the next Mario Kart, and one of them was mission content, which is one thing that Crash Team Racing does have over Mario Kart. Although Activision have gone back in and added optional microtransactions, it's not really content that's quite shady enough to hurt the core experience of the game, which should make for some fun single-player content or local or online multiplayer. And if multiplayer content is what you're after, and for no cost at all, Warframe might be up your alley. The game is a critically acclaimed free-to-play single-player or co-op mission-based looter. You're basically a ninja in space, and the port and support for the Switch are both incredibly impressive. You can choose between several different kinds of weapons, so whether you prefer to shoot bows or guns, or use swords or spears, it's all fast action to get in on. Many missions are linear and objective-based, but there are also open areas with camps to take out and so on. It's sort of like free-to-play Destiny, but you're space ninjas. And speaking of a game in space, recently we received a port to the Switch of Alien Isolation. And not only was it well ported, but Digital Foundry went so far as to say that it even looks better than the PS4 version of the game. Of course, this is a 2019 port compared to a 2015 one with different techniques in use, but the point stands that the performance fares well. And as far as gameplay goes, the original game was very well received as an excellent action-adventure game with strong survival, horror, and stealth elements in the Alien universe. Your character is trying to outsmart an alien creature on the space station with a variety of weapons and tools that you come across, and the port was incredibly well done. And as far as incredible ports go, the one that was the biggest shocker for the year was The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Complete Edition. Fitting the full, huge game and all of its DLC onto a physical cartridge is an incredibly impressive feat. And not only that, but the game runs really well, although at an expected lower resolution, but without losing most of its charm. But not only is the game well ported, it's also a critically acclaimed game whose series helped inspire the gameplay for Breath of the Wild. So if you like Breath of the Wild, but with heavier story elements and a more mature tone, then The Witcher 3 may be for you. And speaking of mature games, the series to start it all was Mortal Kombat, which continued with Mortal Kombat 11 this year. It's the most gruesome of the Mortal Kombats yet, but holds up the series caliber and was a great example that both mature games can thrive on the Switch, but also multiplats that are day and date with their other console counterparts. The graphics of the game obviously take a hit when compared to the other consoles, but on its own stands just fine. And what's more is it runs incredibly smoothly, so if gratuitous fighting is what you're in for, look no further. On the complete other end of the spectrum though, we have games such as Ni no Kuni: Wrath of the White Witch. This game unfortunately got a bad rap right when it came out because one publication put out that it ran really poorly, but it turns out they were the only one with this poor experience, with a faulty copy or some kind of glitch on their end or something like that. But all in all, Ni no Kuni is a very unique RPG that blends turn-based and some action elements of RPGs with creature collecting by the way of familiars that fight alongside you. Furthermore, the game has a beautiful art style throughout, but at no time more than in the cutscenes that are actually animated by Studio Ghibli. Notably, the total hour count for this game is a bit more manageable than other RPGs of its scope, which clocks in around 40 to 50 hours, meaning it could make a companion game a bit better than some of the other longer games on this list. Similarly, if you're looking for something else to complete more quickly in a weekend or a week or so on, you could give a try to HELLBLADE: SENUA'S Sacrifice. This game originally came out in 2017 and is an incredibly interesting game for many reasons. Firstly, it's interesting that this game, after its studio was acquired by Microsoft, was still brought over to Switch. It's not so surprising after Cuphead, Ori, and new Super Lucky's Tale showed up this year, but it's still fairly neat. This game is also interesting because the studio was basically an indie studio before being acquired by Microsoft, but made this absolutely gorgeous game. And as far as gameplay, the game is interesting because it tackles issues of mental health, specifically in the realm of multiple personality disorders, and that plays into the gameplay as well. Otherwise, it's basically an 8-hour-long action-ish role-playing game with a dark tone and compelling storytelling and performances. But after something dark, sometimes it's good to sit back and just play something lighthearted and fun. And Activision came through this year with Crash Team Racing, as well as a Switch port of Spyro Reignited Trilogy. This is a very well-loved franchise, but no games more than its original 3 PlayStation titles that look better than ever in this remake trilogy. The games are classic 3D collectathons, and if that's something you like, then this could be great. But of course, the gameplay is different than most other platformers, as you're not a bipedal mascot, but a 4-legged and winged one who can breathe fire, so the gameplay takes advantage of those aspects as well. Playing all 3 titles back to back can be a bit repetitive, but having a trilogy to take advantage of lots of gaming time spread out over a while is a great purchase, especially as this is the kind of game that will go on sale fairly quickly. As we get close to the end though, there are 2 more games to bring up, the first being AI: The Somnium Files. The character designer has worked on games such as No More Heroes and Fire Emblem, and this is basically a mystery visual novel set in a near-future Tokyo where the protagonist investigates serial killers and his primary clues are found in dreams and suspects' memories that he's able to enter and sift through. One of the aspects of the games that reviewed the best, alongside the phenomenal voice acting, was its stellar writing that was equally deep and thought-provoking as it was approachable and accessible. Along with other games such as Steins Gate Elite and many more, visual novels are starting to find good footing on the Switch, so if you're interested at all in mystery or visual novels, this one may be for you. But lastly, a game that struck a particular chord with me, we received a review copy of Divinity Original Sin 2 Definitive Edition, and I didn't expect to put more than just a couple hours into it. But within the first week, I'd played 25 hours and just loved it. After having to take a several-month break to play some other current games, I've finally come back and can barely put it down. If you're into Dungeons & Dragons, then all I have to say is this is basically D&D without having to work to get your friends together. But if you're not interested in or familiar with D&D, don't let that scare you away. This game won several publications' Game of the Year awards, even above Breath of the Wild in 2017 when it came out. And although it doesn't surpass that game on a personal level to me, it does hit similar wonderful notes of exploration and wonder that I found in Breath of the Wild. The combat is turn-based, but in a much more flexible way than what I'd usually call a turn-based RPG. There are just so many different ways that you can approach each problem, and working your way out of them feels very rewarding. Several times I've gotten into a situation where at first I would have wanted to reload my last save because I accidentally did something that I wouldn't have done. But instead, I just let it play out, and almost every single time, I just let it go the route it wound up, and even being the min-maxer that I am, it was wonderful. Long story short, although this list isn't in any order, this is my personal favorite third-party game of the year and likely of the Switch library. And that's it, 11 of the best third-party Switch games for 2019. And a cool 9 of them, which is 81% or so, had a colon in their titles. So That's a lot. And actually, next week I'll be doing something similar, but instead of looking back at 2019, we'll be looking forward at some of this kind of conversation, but about 2020. It'll be really interesting conversation based on the thoughts that I kind of already have on it. The title will probably be something to the effect of 2020 Switch games. How many colons are they going to be? But that's what I think. What do you think? What are some games that I missed from this list? I'm sure there's some that you liked that I didn't mention. There are some that I liked that I didn't mention. Let me know all that and more by commenting down in the comment section below, and we'll pull some of those to talk about on our podcast directly to you, which is every Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern time. It's 10 a.m. PM is wrong. And then also be sure to like the video and subscribe to fanatixfour for more videos like this every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, even on the week of Christmas. Wow, that's dedication. Look at that. But that's it for me. So you know what? See you next year in 2020.